Hi, I'm Craig Parry, CEO of IsoEnergy, and I'm here today with our Vice President of Exploration, Steve Blower. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into uranium markets, and then the company, and then the hurricane discovery that Steve's made out there. So the uranium market generally, demand in the market is about 194 million pounds per annum. Until recently, until pre-COVID times, global primary production was of the order of 130 million pounds per annum. So we're already in a deep deficit in terms of supply demand. Today, however, with COVID-related cutbacks, at an annualised rate, production's about 80 million pounds per annum. So a dramatically undersupplied market. And of course, the announcement of those closures by Kazatomprom, Cameco and the Namibian government saw the uranium price run from $23.50 a pound to $34 a pound today. But we're only at the earliest of stages. It's really just the threat of that product being removed from the market that's had an impact so far. Of course, Kazatomprom, the CEO there, Permitov said recently, reminded the market recently, that when they turn off their production, you still have leachate running through those in situ leach mines for another 3 months. So really, we don't actually see that product disappear completely from the market until late in July this year. That means that prices haven't fully factored that removal of product from the market. And Kazatomprom today made the point that they won't be selling into the spot market this year at all, and in fact will likely be buying in the spot market this year. So we expect that to have a pretty dramatic impact when those factors start to play out in the next couple of months. So been a very good year for uranium so far, best performing commodity this year so far, up 34%. But we're really at the earliest of stages of what is to come. And certainly all of those major producers out there have indicated that they need to see $50 per pound uranium to justify further investment in production. So that's where we think uranium prices head in the medium term. So great time to be looking at uranium investment, and could be a great year for uranium investors. Okay, so a little bit more detail on the hurricane zone drilling. There you have a core tray from our best hole to date, hole LE 2034. One of the best holes in any commodity drilled this year so far, anywhere. It's 8.5 metres at 34% U3O8. So truly astonishing, great high-grade material there. Typical of those high-grade Athabasca deposits. And you can see there from our winter program, we've had a slew of tremendous results, some of the best drill holes in any commodity throughout the year so far. So we're very happy with those results. And very importantly, we're about to kick off our next drilling campaign in coming weeks. So the market aside, we're drilling some of the highest grade uranium on the planet today. You can see there the core tray from our hole LE 2034, which we drilled this winter. Second best drill hole in any commodity drilled anywhere this year so far, 8.5 metres at 34% uranium. To put that in gold equivalent terms, that's the equivalent of 8.5 metres at 320 grams per tonne gold. So truly astonishing high grades. And on the right-hand side there, you can see a number of those other holes that we drilled this winter. So we've had a tremendous winter of drilling, and we're only a few weeks away from kicking off our summer program. Just to step back a little bit first before we go into the detail on hurricane, and Steve will take us through that. We put this slide up there. We've been putting it there for a couple of years, and it's really, of course, it's NextGen share price chart. IsoEnergy is a spin out of NextGen. We've got a number of directors in common. Lee Courier, the CEO of NextGen, is of course our chairman. So we're deeply associated companies. And we put that share price chart in there because people will often ask you, why would you bother exploring for uranium? And the point here is that discoveries can deliver outstanding returns even in dire markets. And of course, we've been in a very bad market, but at NextGen we've managed to deliver our shareholders over 20 times their original investment. So discoveries count, and that's what we have at IsoEnergy. A little bit about our approach. We're focused on the Athabasca Basin. It's the home of the highest grade uranium deposits in the world, the two biggest mines in the world. It's, in my view, the most prospective part of the world for high-grade uranium, and of course it's in Saskatchewan, which ranks typically number 1 or 2 on the Fraser Institute Survey of Mining Executives. So best place in the world to explore for anything, but particularly uranium. We've got a fantastic team. You know, the team's got, I think, the best track record in uranium exploration in the last 20 years. Steve joined us from Denison. Steve was the head of exploration at Denison, of course, and led the team that discovered the Griffin deposit before coming over here and doing it all again at ISO and discovering the Hurricane deposit. We're also backed by the Next Gen team, and of course those guys made the discovery of Arrow, which is one of the greatest ore bodies found of all time. Timing, we talk about timing. It's been a good time to build a uranium company. In the shadow of a very difficult market, we've been able to do a heck of a lot and get a lot done at relatively cheap prices. We've been able to acquire properties, do deals with majors, and bring on board projects when few others had any interest in doing so. And we're leveraging our strengths. Because of that success at NextGen, we've been able to raise capital and do all of this work in a difficult market when prices for acquisitions and assets were cheap. On to the next slide. So this is our land position in the eastern Athabasca, of course, where you can see that tan area is the Athabasca Basin. Our orange polygons there are our property portfolio. What we inherited or acquired off NextGen were only 5 small properties. We've since gone on to build up a massive portfolio out there. I think today we now have a land package that's similar to a number of the major companies out there, and we're exploring that effectively. And now, of course, that part of the Athabasca Basin is home to 2 of the biggest mines in the world, Cigar Lake and McArthur River. You've got all of the infrastructure you would ever need to develop a project out there. And very importantly, only 40 kilometres away from our Laroque East property and our Hurricane's discovery is the McLean Lake Mill, which is currently underfed. So just to our strategy, it's a very, very simple strategy. We're putting our foot on as much of the prospective eastern Athabasca as we can, and we're getting in and exploring under the unconformity for basement-hosted deposits. Now, of course, the discovery of Arrow has led to a change, a paradigm shift, if you like, in the types of deposits people are looking for in the Athabasca Basin. Until Arrow was discovered, I don't think anyone appreciated that you can have giant uranium deposits sitting in the basement under the unconformity. And this part of the Athabasca has never been effectively explored for basement-hosted deposits. So we're getting in and retesting a lot of that area and exploring for those sorts of deposits. Now, the other part of our strategy is that a huge number of holes have been drilled out in the eastern Athabasca post that last boom. And a lot of those holes intercepted mineralisation or alteration, but because of the industry running out of money because of Fukushima in 2011, a lot of those holes have never ever been followed up. So they've been sitting there waiting for a well-funded, aggressive explorer like IsoEnergy to come along and get in and start testing some of those holes, and that's exactly what we've been doing. And the strategy started to pay off in 2018. Steve led us to the acquisition of our Laroque East property. We acquired that property off Cameco in May 2018 for $300,000 worth of stock and $20,000 in cash. Steve had a rig out there 6 weeks later, and 2 weeks after that we announced the discovery of Hurricane. So a tremendous outcome for the company and for our shareholders. I won't steal any of Steve's thunder. I'll let him talk to you about the Laroque East property and the Hurricane discovery.
Thanks, Craig. The slide you're looking at is the northern part of the eastern side of the Athabasca Basin. It shows our land holdings in orange. The orange polygons that you see on there, the brightest orange being the Laroque East property, which hosts the hurricane zone. When we access the property, we typically fly into the Points North airstrip that you would see on the bottom part of that map, or we would drive up the Highway 905 to Points North and then carry on another 40 kilometers beyond that to the Laroque East access trail. And that's a winter road that goes into the property for about 30 more kilometers. You'll see that it actually follows quite parallel to a red slash on that map, and that is the Laroque trend of graphitic rocks in the basement. And all you need to know is that uranium in the Athabasca Basin is associated with graphite in the basement rocks, no matter whether you're talking about basement-hosted mineralization or unconformity-hosted mineralization. And that particular trend is quite important because it's mineralized. The Alligator Lake showing and the Laroque Lake showing are located along it, and that's not all that common in the basin. Most graphitic trends in the basin are not mineralized. So when we had a chance to buy the 15-kilometer long extension of the Laroque trend on the Laroque East property, we jumped at it. So Craig told you already, $300,000 worth of shares, $20,000 cash to buy it. That was in May of 2018. There were some old drill holes on the property. We had a look at them, and we actually thought that a couple looked like near misses. One in particular was underneath that red star. It was called Kerr 12. And we decided when we got there with a drill, that would be the first target that we tested. And that didn't take very long because we were drilling in June, just 2 months after the purchase of Laroque East on our Geiger property to the south. It was an 8-hole drill program. The first 7 holes didn't go all that well. So with the 8th and final hole, we flew the drill up and tested that Kerr 12 target. Now, Kerr 12 wasn't mineralized itself, but it had some alteration and geochemistry in the sandstone that made us think that maybe it had just overstepped some uranium. So we backed up 40 meters from Kerr 12 and drilled a parallel hole, and we hit 8.5 meters at 1.3%. So that is the Hurricane Discovery, and we were away to the races. It was the last hole of the program. We were out of budget. It was expensive flying the drill in the summertime, so we just decided to put on the brakes, interpret our geology, get our geochemistry back, and then go back in the wintertime when we could put in a camp and do things in a proper way for a follow-up drill program. And so that is what happened. So really January to March 2019 was our first follow-up effort at the Hurricane Zone. And that went extremely well. We drilled uranium in every hole in that program. And then followed that up with a very successful summer campaign, drilled lots of high-grade uranium then. And by the end of 2019, we had a zone that was 500 meters long by 40 meters across by 210 meters thick. Only 330 meters below surface. We're 40 kilometers from the McLean Lake Mill, and so by the end of 2019, things were going very well. So that takes us to 2020. Our January to March winter drilling program has really just wrapped up not very long ago. And what we did was we concentrated on the western side of the Hurricane Zone, and that's what you see on this map. And most of the blue highlighted boxes are from that 2020 winter drilling campaign. Truly spectacular grades, a step up from what we had seen in the past. We already had some terrific results at the Hurricane Zone, but some astonishingly high-grade intercepts in those blue boxes. That takes us to what are we going to do 2020 in the summer program. We'll be back in and drilling, we expect, in mid-August, and really focusing on those hatched polygons that you see there, labeled A, B, C, and D, where we think there's the best opportunity to expand those zones of very high-grade uranium mineralization, and where we'll get the most bang for our buck. So that's what we'll be doing. We expect a 20-hole program kicking off in mid-August. In cross-section view, that's what it looks like. We see the Athabasca sandstone in the top half of the section, what we call basement rocks in the bottom, and the contact between the two is the unconformity, and that's where the uranium at Hurricane is located. Gray units in the basement rocks are graphitic gneisses. That's what causes the Laroque trend that we talked about earlier. And this is a cross-section that's looking to the east, quite close to the property boundary. So north is to the left, south is to the right, and it shows that hole 34 that Craig has already talked to you about, 34% over 8.5 meters. And clearly there's room to expand that to the north of that drill hole. There are no drill holes north of it. We go through the next intersection to the south, 21% over 4 meters, and we follow that with 23% over 7.5 meters in hole 52, the hole furthest to the south. It's the same story going to the south. There's a follow-up target area marked on there. It shows that there's terrific potential for more high-grade mineralization to the south. And that large offset that you see in the unconformity caused by faults is just a prime location for depositing high-grade uranium in the Athabasca. So we expect good results as we continue to follow up. Just jumping 75 meters further to the east on this section, it's exactly the same story. Good uranium to the north, no drill holes yet in the northern direction, and the same goes to the south. Lots of potential to the south yet on that section. And honestly, you know, all 5 of the westernmost sections look exactly like this, and really there are no sections that are closed off in all of Hurricane. So that's what we'll be doing this summer. Just a zoomed out view. We're looking at a zoomed out view of the eastern half of Laroque East. Most of the drilling that we've done so far at the Hurricane Zone is buried behind that red star, just to give you a scale of what's ahead of us. We've done some geophysical surveying last summer to highlight where the conductivity is out to the east, where we can expect more graphite, more faulting, and hopefully additional uranium, and that's what's shown on there with those warm colors on that map. So several kilometers of extremely conductive stratigraphy coming up, and lots of potential for uranium out there. Yeah, there's Hurricane in a schematic cartoon of deposits in the Athabasca, showing its place, you know, quite a bit shallower than the big mines, Cigar Lake and MacArthur River, and some of those other deeper deposits out there. And I think, you know, very importantly, not underneath any water cover, we're high and dry for exploration and for operations. A quick few words on other high priority properties. This is our Geiger property, which I mentioned we were drilling on just before we discovered the hurricane zone. It's the poster child for what Craig talked about with intersections of weak uranium mineralization or uranium pathfinder elements that were made in that last boom and pre-2011 that just haven't been properly followed up. And each one of those stars and call-out boxes represents an opportunity to find additional mineralization. We've tested 2 of those so far. The radio property, it's another one of our highest priority projects. That's because it's only 2 kilometers from the Rough Rider deposit. Rough Rider was sold to Rio Tinto back in 2011 for $580 million roughly. That stratigraphy, that geology from Rough Rider trends right onto the radio property. We think there's incredible potential for more mineralization there at radio still. This is our Thorburn Lake property, the last of our high priority projects. It's located 7 kilometers to the east of the Cigar Lake mine. Just to the east of our property is the Thorburn Lake deposit. It's not on our ground, even though it shares the same name. Drill holes of up to 8.8 meters at 3.2% uranium there. And then just further to the east of that is 1.3 meters at 22% uranium at the Sand Lake deposit. So hopefully you're getting the idea that Thorburn Lake is surrounded by a bunch of high-grade uranium mineralization. Numerous geophysical targets remain to be tested there. We can't wait to get back there with a drill. And that's it for me, Craig.
Okay, thanks Steve. So a little bit more about the company and where we're at. So very important slide here, of course, and the most important part of that slide is that pie chart on the right hand side that shows clearly that NextGen owns 52% of the company. So we've got a major shareholder there. I think it's safe to say that NextGen and the board at NextGen are very happy with the performance of IsoEnergy and our hurricane discovery. And NextGen's been a supportive shareholder all the way along. We raised $7 million back in December last year. NextGen contributed $3 million of that and will continue to support the company going forward. Our share register, apart from NextGen's a bit of a who's who in the uranium space. We've got Orano there and Cameco, of course. And then very importantly, we have a number of those thought-leading fund managers out there that support uranium explorers and developers. So guys like Sachem Cove, Mike Alkin and the team there, the guys at Segra and Old West Asset Management. And those guys we think are holding their shares for the longer term and through this boom that they think is coming. And that means our free float's very, very minor, probably less than 25% of the company, which means we offer investors a lot of talk. And what we see is whenever the uranium price rises or we put out good news, our share price typically outperforms. And certainly it's worth keeping in mind that we'll be drilling again at the Hurricane Discovery here in a couple of weeks. We've got $3 million in the bank. That sees us well funded for the program we've got ahead of us. We have a very tight share structure with only 84 million shares out. A little bit about the management team, myself and Steve, of course. Very importantly, Andy Carmichael, who again was a senior geologist, Denison, and has been involved in a number of discoveries in the uranium space. The board there, a number of familiar faces, of course. Lee Courier, our chairman, is the CEO of NextGen, and these were also, the rest of the team there were founding board members at NextGen and have a long and successful track record in uranium. So that's IsoEnergy, the only junior with a new high-grade uranium discovery in the world. Can't be a better time ever than now to look at uranium as an investment thesis. Prices have only just started to rise. We think they're going to rise strongly into the future. We've got a team with a great track record of success with a number of major discoveries under our belt. You know, I think the best location on the planet to be exploring for high-grade uranium, Eastern Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan. And of course, you know, having that tight share structure with NextGen owning 52% of the company sees us so very well set up for our shareholders to benefit from this coming boom market and the results that will follow from our current drill campaign. So we hope you enjoyed the IsoEnergy story and thank you for watching.